All right. Good morning. Welcome to the Mint Condition Podcast. Don't know if it's morning for you. Hopefully you're listening to us on your way driving to work. I'm Brad. I'm going to be hosting the show today. Today I've got a special guest, the Wizard, here with us, Dr. John Thayn. He's a chiropractor here in Lehi, Utah. He's got a lot of experience. He's going to give us some background on what he does, his specialty, and then we're going to dive into some fun conversations so that you guys can learn about the medical field more. Thanks for coming on the show, John.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about your background. Let's start with where did you get into this profession? Why did you become a chiropractor, and where?
Okay, oddly enough, I started out in architecture.
Me too.
No, and so we almost followed the same kind of blueprints to get here. I started in architecture. I went to school to be an architect. I had one that was going to hire me right out of school. He's like, "Yep, if you do this, I'll hire you. We'll start." I got to school and I was like, "This is pretty easy," and so I swapped and said, "Nope, I'm going to go to engineering because that should be harder."
Right.
And so then I did a degree in drafting, in engineering drafting. So it was kind of fun and exciting, and I got that done. And then I was like, well, I should do a mission. So then I went on a mission.
Where'd you go?
I served in England.
Okay.
And so I got to England, and I was like, okay. My second companion, he was getting ready to go home. So everybody had the question of, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Maybe I should think about it some more. And so I thought about it and prayed about it and looked at it and said, engineering and architecture is not where it's at. And every time I thought about it and prayed about it, it came back, you should be a doctor. I was like, well, I guess I'll go home and be a doctor.
Big shift in fields.
Huge shift in fields. Different thought process.
Yeah.
I guess not too big. My dad's a chiropractor. I got back from my mission. My brother was in school to be a chiropractor. And so I got home, wrapped everything up getting home, and went out to St. Louis and started school.
In chiropractic school, or?
I went, the school denied my first associates. And so I went back and did like a hybrid program. I started at Logan University and at Merrimack. Logan had an accelerated science program, so I took super heavy loads in chemistry and all of that fun stuff, and finished up a second associate's in a year.
Dang.
Then I went in and started chiropractic college.
Okay, cool.
And so
you got your doctorate degree in chiropractic. Mm-hmm. Then what'd you do after that?
So I got my doctorate in chiropractics. I really loved working with athletes. And so instead of going straight into the field and starting to practice, I went back to school and I did a master's in sports medicine and rehabilitation.
What drove you to do that? Because most people, you think you get a doctorate degree, maybe you go back for a PhD if you want to, do research, but what drove you to go back and get that secondary education?
Going clear throughout the doctorate program, I looked at it and I said, I really like getting people to perform at their highest level. And so getting the joints actively functioning, getting the motion, getting that movement there was amazing. However, what I found is that if I just got the motion restored and I didn't get them to rehab and get the muscular balance back, that their recovery didn't stick as well as I liked.
Right.
And so looking at that and knowing that I liked working with athletes, the masters just fit right into it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. It gives you both sides of that, because a lot of chiropractors and physical therapists can work together. We have some stuff that overlaps, but now you're even more well-rounded.
Yeah, it makes it really easy to fit right in with everybody, because then I can look at it and say, okay, I'm going to do the joint work. I'm going to make sure that everything's moving properly. Let's get somebody in here. We can take and have them stretch. We can take and have them strengthen it. I can watch over it a little bit to make sure that everything's on path, and it just works really nice.
What I like about it is it gives you that full picture, where a lot of chiropractors understand movement and exercise, and I'm not trying to discount their education at all, but clearly it gives you a bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
And same thing with physical therapists. who don't maybe understand adjustments and all of the stuff that chiropractors learn unless they go and get further education, kind of like what you did.
Absolutely. I would say it just, as you keep saying, it just gives me a broader spectrum of where do we need to focus? Do we need to focus on muscles? Do we need to focus on ligaments? Do we need to focus on joints? And it allows me to say, well, let's push this person into full recovery. Let's get them back to their best. After I finished up with my master's, I actually went and practiced in Colorado Springs for a while. And my whole goal there is that I wanted to interact with the Olympic Training Center a little bit there.
That's cool. Did you get to?
I did a little bit.
Okay. What kind of involvement? You got involved with some of the athletes or the staff? Or
Yep. And so what kind of happened is I got out there. I started working in a practice with another group, and how it all came together is I started working with a bunch of Olympic level wrestlers.
That's pretty cool.
Which was a ton of fun.
Do you have a background in wrestling?
I do not.
Okay.
My background for sports is all swimming and diving and water polo and all of that stuff, and so not a huge background in wrestling. In school, I did a bunch of stuff with soccer players and volleyball players and things like that. So we got into working with a bunch of wrestlers, and that evolved in working with a bunch of MMA fighters out of Vegas that would fly up to Colorado Springs and train at the gym down the road from us. And then they'd swing in and we'd work with them. And I'd get to go over. I visited the Olympic Training Center a couple of times to go in and watch them wrestle and watch them spar and stuff like that, so we could do some general modifications and techniques to help them be better at it. And so, fun.
Are you going to do that at all with the Olympics coming back here to Utah?
You know, I've been looking at it. So for me to interact a ton with the Olympics, the community says that my master's and doctorate isn't quite enough. They want me to get a diplomate on top of all of that to be able to interact with the Olympics a bunch here. And so they want me to become super specialized in it.
Yeah.
To say that I can.
Which isn't maybe what you want?
I go back and forth between it.
Okay.
Oddly enough, I have all the stuff to get the base level diplomate for that. I just got to go take all the testing, and then
maybe worth it.
Might be worth it.
So you own Reflex Chiropractic, community-based chiropractic clinic, right?
Yes.
So you're serving your community. It'd be a little bit of a shift, or would you keep doing both?
To shift and go more towards sports and athletics, I think it'd probably be a pretty big shift.
Yeah,
and
seems like that.
The reasoning behind that is my facility isn't big enough. Yeah. In all honesty, if I was going to shift and go back, the facility I was running, I was the only doctor in the facility in Colorado. Was about 6,800 square feet.
Yeah,
and so I had about 30 staff members.
Huge.
I had a huge facility. We had a whole rehab program in it. Huge facility. And here my facility is only about 1,700 square feet.
Yeah.
And so I'd have to put in a whole gym. I'd have to put in a bunch of stuff to actually be able to do it right.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, I think that your background, clearly very diverse, right? Doctorate degree, master's degree, well-rounded, allows you to be a doctor. I think this is where a lot of physical therapists, chiropractors sometimes fail their patients or maybe don't perform at the same level, is they forget to be the doctor, which means, like, I'm going to do my specialty. I'm going to treat them this way. But to be the clinician, the doctor, I think you have to see the big picture.
Right? I would agree with that.
Order an MRI when it's needed. Put on a cast when it's needed. Send out to physical therapy when that's what's needed, right? And I feel like your background allows you to do that.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I would say that, I did the stint where I was in Colorado Springs and I worked with the Olympic athletes there, and then I jumped over to Moab, Utah, where I was like, well, let's do something a little bit different. And I started working with a ton of runners and a ton of bikers and a ton of ex-sports guys that were trying to climb up and down cliffs and all that fun stuff. Pretty much everywhere I've been, I've interacted with that, other than here, oddly enough. When I came back to Utah and I started back in Provo and that area, I started actually interacting with a lot more dancers.
Okay. That's awesome. There's a lot of theater, dance stuff here in Utah.
Absolutely a ton of dance stuff here. So I started working with a bunch of dancers, and fun enough, I get to watch them on TV all the time now. It's really cool to see them go out and their success and where they're going. So I've always interacted a little bit with different kind of sports at different levels. My main focus here in Utah has been more auto accident injury and just general family recovery. I see a lot of people where they get that injury, they've had some care, and it just didn't stick quite as well as it should. And so I get to go in and say, okay, we're going to do some adjustments. We're going to get them in with a physical therapist. We're going to get a second opinion with a medical doctor, or get an MRI, or get all of those other components that may have been missed, or they just might not have thought about it, and get those components put together and say, okay, this is the road that we need to go down and get people fully recovered. It's a ton of fun.
I think that's important in any type of injury, but especially with that personal injury. When you're hurt in a car crash and you haven't been through it before, it's almost like you don't know the path, you don't know the steps, and you don't know what you should be doing. So what it sounds like is you're able to really quarterback that, give people the answers, guide them down that. So what got you into the personal injury so you can help people and kind of be their coach?
I kind of fell into it.
Okay.
I came back from Colorado. I started in Moab. I came back up here. My dad was sick, so I moved a little bit closer to him. And I rented a little tiny room from a doc that specialized in auto accidents, because I was trying to start my own practice. And it's a little scary to start your own practice.
Got to start small and build it.
Absolutely. So I got in with him, and he had a couple of practices throughout Salt Lake Valley. And one of his docs got sick, and he's like, will you fill in for me? I'll, work at your place and work at my place, and we'll do both. And so I worked at his place for a couple of weeks, and he's like, this doc isn't going to come back. You want to just take this entire office, and you'll be the doc here and run the entire office. And so I was like, okay, why not? I can do that. I've ran him before. And so we got involved, and his office was probably 95% auto accidents. We were seeing a huge amount of patients. That's kind of where I started doing Spanish, because that office was 90% Spanish speaking.
That's huge.
I was not Spanish speaking at all. And so,
how did you get by?
My staff saved me.
Okay.
And so pretty much everybody in the office were fully bilingual. They'd walk me through. They'd always be at my shoulder, making sure, which was odd, because the doc that owned it, he's like, you're the only non-Spanish speaking doctor I've ever hired.
Interesting.
And he gave me the whole clinic after just a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty exciting, pretty terrifying.
Yep.
My Spanish is still not very good, but I learned a bunch of stuff from it. So it was fun.
Just being thrust into that community, you're going to learn a ton. And it's a beautiful language.
Oh, it was a ton of fun. I love the Spanish community. They're absolutely great.
That's awesome. Well, being in the auto accident injury field, what advice would you give somebody? They get in a car crash. What are the first things that they need to be thinking and doing?
Okay. So, oddly enough, last month I was actually in a car crash.
Okay.
And so what did I do? Well, I immediately assessed to see that I'm okay. I am a chiropractor. I work with tons of PTs. My next call was actually to my insurance adjuster to open a case to make sure that it was covered. Within the week, I was with a physical therapist and had a chiropractor on board, so I couldn't treat myself. So I had two medical professionals.
Have you tried?
Immediately. It's harder than it looks, and I'm waiting for the AI to try and show some stuff, because they're going to see them twist in half. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Self-adjusted on AI. That'd be
a whole thing.
Yeah, it would. I love it.
And so
you reached out. You got a medical team. You've got physical therapy chiropractors working with you.
And I think that's the key. I think a lot of people, when they reach out and they first get in an accident, they're scared of trying to Well, it's new. It's scary.
Yeah.
They're scared of getting people on board, a team together, to actually get them better. And I would say that's probably the biggest key to actually fully recovering is to get a doctor on board, get an attorney on board, get the insurance on board.
See, a lot of people I've talked to are saying, "Oh, I don't want to call an attorney; it'll cost too much," or "I don't want to sue anybody." How do you help your patients get over that fear or that barrier?
Well, that's an easy question. I get that question all the time too, and the answer to that is that the attorney isn't there to sue anybody. The attorney isn't there to take any of the money. The attorney is there to make sure that the insurance company treats you fairly. And so he's there to help manage the money. If you're in a big accident where there's multiple different injuries, there's a rotator cuff tear, or there's a spinal surgery, or there's something bigger that has to occur, the attorney's job is to help manage to make sure that the funds are there to get you taken care of and get you recovered. And so that's their job.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of patients over the last couple of years that they're like, no, I'll just manage it myself. And about 3-4 months in, they're like, this is overwhelming.
Yeah.
The amount of paperwork they have to do, the insurance is calling every day repetitively, both insurance companies trying to figure out what's going on. It's hard. And if you're in an accident, I would say most people walk away with a mild traumatic brain injury of some sort. And so having to go through and answer all those questions and be legitimate in your answer with a traumatic brain injury, that's totally unfair to the person.
Yeah.
So
I think it's just like your profession or my profession. If somebody's like, "Oh, I won't go see a PT, I'll just watch some YouTube videos," and they might get it right, find the right ones, do the right exercises, maybe, right? Or it's going to take them 10 times as long, or they're going to do it wrong. So same thing when hiring a lawyer, that's what they do all day. That they know the steps, they're not going to miss things as long as they get a good one, right? One that communicates and actually cares about the case.
And speaking of that, one that specializes in auto accidents is absolutely worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
If I go and buy a house, I don't want an auto accident attorney to evaluate it. I want a real estate attorney.
Yeah.
If I'm going to build a trust, I want a trust attorney. If I'm going to build out a bunch of legal paperwork, I want attorneys specializing in that. Because then you're right. Then they don't miss stuff. They do it all day long. They know the laws. They know the rules. They know the little caveats that the insurances are doing right now. And they allow the patient to recover without the stress. And that removing that stress facilitates the recovery so much.
100%. When you can focus, okay, my job is this. It's like if everybody listening to the podcast has a job, right? Or a lot of them. And at their job, they have to answer the phone, send the invoices, treat the patient, and market. You're unsuccessful. But if you're only there answering phones and scheduling patients, you're going to do great. If you're only creating invoices and doing the books, you're going to do great. So your job as an injured patient is get yourself treated. Focus on getting better. And I think to add to that is that concussion, like you said. I love that you pointed that out. They're trying to learn a new career to become a PI lawyer with a concussion on their own. No schooling, no anything.
Which makes it difficult. I mean, I wouldn't even imagine trying to do that.
Yeah.
It's the blind leading the blind, and it just helps, let's go through. And the auto industry is a great example of this. Have you ever looked at the different dealerships and how everything kind of works? So if I take and I drive a Toyota or a Ford or a Chevy, whatever you're driving, they have specialty garages for that model of car that you can take your car, that those mechanics have been specifically trained in Subaru or in BMW. And the other garages, they can do the job. They just don't do it as good.
Yep. I think the same thing applies. I love that you said you work with a lot of dancers. If you're going to work with a dancer and I'm going to work with a dancer, but I've never done it before, then their hypermobility is something that's going to freak me out.
Oh, for sure. And what you'll find is that hypermobility, the new normal for them is nowhere near the normal for the average person.
Yeah.
So you're never going to get them to recover back to the point where they were pre-accident.
Yep. Yeah. And that's why people need to go find specialists who work with what they're dealing with. So
Absolutely.
you do a lot of auto accident work. Somebody gets in a car crash, to consider their concussion or their whiplash and not just treat them like any other patient. Are there any other specialties or things that you enjoy treating?
Well, I am a general practitioner. And so with my dad being a chiropractor, and I have a brother, and oddly enough, I had a niece a couple years graduate as a doctor as well. So it's kind of a family thing.
That's great.
When I first got out of school, I did a bunch of the rehab stuff, and I was like, I really love nutrition. So I started doing tons of nutritional stuff.
That's
I started
cool.
doing, again, I'm kind of all over the place. One of the things that a lot of people don't look at is infants. And so you don't see a lot of people where they're like, oh, well, my infant was in a car accident, or my little kids were in a car accident, and now they don't sleep well. Now they don't eat. Now they're not going to the bathroom regularly. Their personalities have completely shifted. And you'll see that all throughout kids. And so I really love watching kids recover. One of the funnest things to see is to get just a young kid they were doing great. Their speech was on track. They were reading. They were walking. They get in a car accident, and it steals all of that stuff from them. So they completely revert back to crawling. They no longer form full sentences. They can't talk with their parents appropriately. And you get them in the office, and you start getting them back to where they're doing all of those things. And that is one of the most gratifying experiences that you can have, is knowing that they don't have to suffer with that throughout their entire life. They're not going to have a speech therapist through their whole lives. They're not going to have to be held back in school because of those injuries.
Right.
And I go clear up into school because some of those injuries, they don't recover on their own. And so when parents take and they say, oh, well, we're going to do this all on our own. We're going to see our own recovery. We're going to do our own rehab. Those injuries are stuck with those people for the rest of their lives if they don't find care. I've found people, my wife's a great example. She was in a car accident when she was really young. About 4 months after the car accident, she was diagnosed with chronic migraines, and she had migraines for almost 15 years before she met me. And then we've been working with her, and she doesn't get migraines anymore. She doesn't get those headaches. She has a headache now once a year, where before she was having 1 to 2 headaches that were incapacitating weekly.
Yeah.
And so those little accidents that people see and are like, oh, yeah, this is just a baby accident. It didn't cause any real damage. Those haunt them throughout their entire lives.
Yeah. Especially for an infant, because their brain's still developing. That's the most important time, right? I think that we've got to invest more in that. We've treated a lot of people get in a car crash, and it's like anybody else in the car. Oh, yeah, my 3 kids. What treatment are they getting? Oh, they'll be fine, because they're resilient, right? So they can hide it or compensate, or even if they're not hiding it to you and me, right? Their parents might not notice because they're still bouncing off the walls and crazy, right? Now, obviously, when it's more traumatic, like you're saying, where they revert backwards, hopefully the parents notice that too.
Oh, for sure. I've seen somewhere simplest things. They were in an accident. The only difference that the parents really saw was that their kid was more aggressive.
So they
played more aggressive.
Accident?
Nope.
Okay.
They didn't connect it to the car accident. They didn't connect it to anything. They're like, oh, well, yeah. They really didn't look at it as anything different. They're just like, no. They just play with their brother a little bit more aggressive, and they yell at him, and they're a little more aggressive than they used to be.
Were you able to start treating him?
Oh, absolutely. We bring him in. We do a full exam on the child and make sure that the musculoskeletal system's balanced. Obviously, in that case, we saw a ton of upper cervical injury. So this young man had whiplash.
Yeah.
It was really easy to see. His range of motion was almost none, where in a kid they should have excessive amount of motion. So no range of motion. You turn him, immediately would get grumpy with you.
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
you'd go in within a very short period of time. We're probably looking at about 2-3 weeks. The over-aggression was completely gone at the house. They'd return back to their normal patterns of living. And what that tells me, pain levels are mostly gone.
Yeah.
Stability was not restored. So then we took another couple of weeks working with some physical therapists and stuff like that to stabilize and get muscle motor control back to normal. So they were able to go back and not have those problems.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that range of motion was restored.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that aggression was not only sometimes you're aggressive or respond emotionally because of a physical ailment, I'm in pain or whatever, but it affects the nervous system too, right?
Oh, absolutely. If you look, the statistics on the first year of life, so if I take an infant within the first 3 weeks to the end of the first year, their spine doubles in length within that first year. Dang. And so just seeing that change, seeing that growth rate, that's almost traumatic on its own.
Yeah.
And then adding in a secondary trauma to that absolutely plays huge into the nervous system. You'll see change in bowel movements, change in eating habits, unable to latch, change in motor control. So you'll see that they're not able to crawl as fast, or they'll crawl in circles instead of being able to crawl straight. So you'll see a lot of that neurological function shift and change with it.
Yeah, that's crazy. And that's something that needs to be assessed quickly early on so that it's not hindering their progress for years and years to come. That's super important. I think anybody who listens to our podcast should, wherever they're at, should go in and get an assessment. It doesn't hurt get an assessment and have a chiropractor who says, yeah, you're actually fine, right?
Well, I love when that happens. I've had that happen a couple of times where I've had people come in, they're post-car accident, and oddly, I've seen some really big car accidents at 60, 70 miles an hour on the highway. They come in, everybody else in the car is totally blown out, and there's one person that's like, it's just magic. They're like, nope, don't have any pain. Their range of motion's great. And you're like, I almost don't believe this because did you see the car you got out of?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, no, I feel great. And so you check them that first week and you evaluate and say, okay, they really are feeling great. Let's kick it out, because the body sometimes takes a minute to actually respond to an injury. So my normal recommendation is that the pain levels can amplify over the first 3 to 4 weeks. And I see that pretty regularly with injuries from car accidents. And so I'll do that first visit, and then a month out, I'll do a second visit and just say, okay, are you still okay? And if they're doing great, that's exactly what you hope for everybody. You never want anybody to be injured.
Yeah.
You want them to feel great, feel good, and you release them back to their everyday life with them knowing that they're doing good. And getting rid of that question in their mind is a big part of it.
Yeah, when you can trust your body, you're like, I'm going to be okay. People always, like a year later, will be like, man, I started getting headaches. And they're like, oh, this is from that car crash when I was 12. It's like, okay, you never got assessed to be told you're fine. Mm-hmm. So they're going to link everything for the rest of their life. Like, go get that assessment. Those are the 3 things I tell people after a car crash is don't say I'm sorry. Don't say I'm fine, because you don't know. And don't say we don't need to call the cops. Talk to the cops. That's going to be good. But to talk about the I'm fine part, you said you do an assessment, then you're like, hey, let's check back in 3 weeks. You check again. They're doing great. They're probably good. Mm-hmm. When people get in a car crash, they get out 5 minutes after or 2 minutes after the crash. And they're like, yeah, I'm fine.
Well,
they don't know yet.
They have no idea. And the body's systems are designed in that fight or flight. So if you're in a car accident, your body releases a ton of different hormones to not feel things.
Yeah.
And that takes 24 to 48 hours for the body to reabsorb those and break those back down. So for the first 24 to 48 hours, you actually don't know if you're hurt or not.
Which has to be a weird sensation, right?
Totally goofy.
What was your experience in your car crash recently? Because I haven't been in a car crash in a long time. When did you notice?
Oh, no. First day, I was driving home from work, had the car accident, went home. I'm like, I have no pain whatsoever. Didn't hurt at all. And then being me, I was going through range of motion. I started checking myself, and I'm like, my range of motion to the left is 100%. My range of motion to the right is about 20. So mechanically, it's failing. Pain-wise, the body's not reading that it's broke yet. Okay, so let's go through, and the next day, oh yeah, that pain started to show up. I started getting headaches. I started having neck pain. It went into my upper shoulder on the right just a little bit, and I'm like, yep, this is horrible. I don't like this at all. But yeah, it took me that 24 hours for my body to even realize to get those pain signals going.
Which is really impressive. It's a good thing our body does that. Like, my favorite analogy about this is if a lion is chasing you and you sprain your ankle, are you going to notice? Probably not, because your body says, forget the ankle. I've got to stay alive. Mm-hmm. And we actually, one of our employees at our physical therapy practice was in a car crash recently, called me immediately after. And I was like, okay, tell me, how's everything going? Oh, I'm totally fine. I'm like, don't say that, because people like your insurance or whatever will say, you said you were fine. Yeah, I'm fine right now, but I don't know yet, right? And if you add that clarification, then it's okay. Say, I'm feeling okay right now, but I don't know yet.
Oh, absolutely. Back when I was working with the wrestlers and the MMA fighters, you'd see fractured bones, and they'd finish the match with broken bones and torn ligaments and all kinds of stuff. And if you'd ask them, did you feel when you broke that? Some of them would be like, oh yeah, no, I could totally tell it was broke. I had no pain whatsoever, but my hand just didn't move right. And so I knew that it was broken, or my ankle, I tore that ligament and I felt my foot roll out from under me and my ankle went onto the mat. Totally knew it was blown out and no pain whatsoever. Continued the match.
Is that just pure adrenaline?
Adrenaline, yeah. It's just the body saying, dang, I am in that fight or flight situation, so you're not going to feel those things.
Yeah.
The ER shows are always awesome. They always have one episode where they have somebody come in and they've got an axe in their back or a knife or some random thing, and the person's like, I'm fine, until they look at it and then they freak out because they've been stabbed or something. Yeah. That is a legit response. The body doesn't process it fast enough to show pain. Pain is just the red lights in your car. If you look at your dash and a red light turns on, what does it mean? Something might be wrong.
Or maybe nothing's wrong.
That's pain.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily that it's telling that it's fixing anything. It's not doing anything for you other than saying it's time to stop and evaluate because something's wrong. And if you're in an emergency situation, you don't care if something's wrong. You have to get out of that emergency situation first. So all of those hormones, turn your red lights on your dash off.
Yeah.
So you can go and save your life or save something else or do those things. And then it comes later.
And usually worse.
Yep.
I like that analogy of the dashboard. Whenever I watch those TV shows that show that, you always think, oh, they're being funny. It's legit. Mm-hmm. Somebody's like, oh, you're bleeding. It's like, what? Oh, I got shot? Like, I didn't even notice because of that concept.
Well, everybody's had a paper cut. How long does it take you to realize you've had a paper cut?
Depends on the situation.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to guess 80 to 90% of the listeners out there have had a paper cut where they turn around, they're starting something else, and they're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And then the paper cut hurts after they look at it.
Yep.
It didn't hurt beforehand.
Nope. And it's going to hurt and hurt and hurt.
Because it's miserable. That's the body's not realizing that something's off.
Yeah.
The pain didn't turn on because there was nothing there to kick it off until you visually saw it.
Yeah.
And then in your brain says, there's damage. Oh, now I can hurt.
Yeah.
It gets the okay from the brain to hurt.
Yeah. Man, and pain, we could go on and on. Pain science, one of the best
Super
topics.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
Best topics. I love talking about everything that you just said, and then the complete opposite side of things where your body's responding, the lights are flashing, and there's nothing wrong. And just understanding, okay, how do we treat that then? When it's something like chronic regional pain syndrome or even some types of fibromyalgia where nothing's necessarily wrong, or like I'll have patients who are completely better. They're like, why does it hurt so bad? And it's like, nothing's wrong. Your tissues have healed, range of motion, everything's great. And the brain is still telling itself that it's bad.
Well, you see that all the time, especially with chronic, long-lasting issues. That kid that was in the car accident that's now 5 years out, that now has a chronic low back pain. And they're like, wait a minute, you're 15, 16. You shouldn't have any pain at 15,
and
16.
And it's been 5 years.
Yeah, it's been 5 years. Why are you hurting? You go through, I see a lot of really cool stuff with changing modalities of how they stretch. So instead of having them just do the regular toe touch, you put a book under the ball of their feet or on the heels of their feet, and you watch their pain patterns. I immediately turn off because you change that 5 or 10 degrees.
Yeah.
And then you get them to stretch a different way or work a different way, and the body starts reprogramming and gets rid of that hypersensitivity. There's some really cool stuff on that. I work with some pain management groups that you see some really fun stuff with that as well. That's one of the things that nerve blocks are actually really great at, is that you'll get them back to where they're feeling great. It's been 6-7 months because their accident was bigger or they've had a huge injury, and then you get them in with a pain management group and they start looking at some different medications or some different injection types, and it just is getting the brain to reset to feel that area back differently like it should have been. Right. Everybody's heard of muscle memory. The nervous system has the exact same thing. So if I get a muscle, how long does it take a muscle to gain a memory?
I don't know. Repetition, right?
It's all repetition. But if I take an injury, so if we took your shoulder and rolled your shoulder forward out of place, so it wasn't moving properly, wasn't painful, but it didn't move properly, and we left it there for 8 to 9 weeks, that's going to go through a whole process of motor reprogramming. So the body's going to stabilize it in that new area, and it's going to think that's its new norm.
Yeah.
And so if I take that 9-week period, so you're looking at that 2-month window, hence the super important after an injury to get in as soon as possible.
Yep. Now
I've got to get that joint to go back in place, and I've got to take that joint, rehab it, and keep it in place for that 8 to 9 weeks minimum.
Yeah.
To get that neural reprogramming, to get that muscular reprogramming, to get all of that reset. Weightlifters see this all the time. You send somebody to the gym, they start exercising, they see huge gains in the first month to 2 months.
Because
what are those gains? It's all neural programming. Yeah. They don't see huge muscle build, they see huge neural reprogramming.
Right.
Then they hit that plateau. Almost everybody hits that 8 to 9 week plateau. And then they have to change their workout protocol to build muscle mass. Then the nutrition becomes so much more important because now you're building muscle fibers instead of just changing neural reprogramming.
Right.
Injury works the exact same way. You get into it, you start getting that neural reprogramming because you've had that injury. Your low back is compensating, your knees doing something. Soccer players are great, baseball, football. How many sprained ankles do you see in those sports? You see them all the time.
Oh, yeah.
The statistical likelihood that they're going to get out of pain within a short period, pretty high.
Yeah.
Unless they do something big. Now, everybody's seen the football player that they roll it under, and you're like, yeah, dude, that dude's not coming back for the next 2 years.
Yep.
But you see the little ones. What does that mean if they don't rehab that?
They've learned a bad lesson, and they're bound to repeat it.
It's guaranteed. I think the statistical likelihood is they increase their likelihood at the next game to re-sprain that ankle by 30 or 40%.
Yeah.
It's huge. That's why all of the major league teams have a PT, have a chiro. They all have people sitting on the sideline. They all have a medical team sitting on the sideline to get rid of those little injuries so the next game they don't make a big injury.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that we see post-car accident is that I'm not hurt. Oh, I got to go out and do this thing. The body's unstable. It's not completely failing. It's got that aches, that pains, and then they go do something that they wouldn't think would bother them. They go lift their kid, and they immediately get that failure. Then they have that pain. Then they have that big problem, and then they don't know what to do because the pain all of a sudden becomes monstrous. That's why when you get in a car accident, when you have an injury, it doesn't matter what kind of injury, work injury, car accident, slip and fall, hiking injury, it doesn't matter what kind of injury. The key is to get evaluated by your team that you build.
Yep.
That way you know that when you go and do those activities, you're at your best. You want to, from my understanding, from how I try and run things, I want to be at my best when I go ride my bike. That way I decrease the likelihood of me having an injury on my bike. When I go and play pickleball, or I go and ski, or I go and do all of these different activities, would you ever go do those activities at 30% of what you could normally do?
No way.
Why not?
Because of the risk.
That's what it is.
But I think what's hard for the public is that knowledge.
Yes.
They don't know. They don't want to embellish and exaggerate. I'll be fine. I'll put ice on it. But they don't know that component. If I don't hurt, if the lights aren't flashing, my car's fine. But maybe you should still take it to a mechanic every 2 or 3 years, right? And our bodies are different. Go see your doctor once a year. But primary care doctors might just be like, any issues, blah, 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 check your weight, your blood pressure. But they don't check your range of motion. They don't check that I only got 20% when looking to the right. And if you weren't a chiropractor, maybe you don't notice that. The worst part is I have patients tell me, I've always been that way. We lost power for a sec.
We did.
Is everything still going? All right.
Perfect.
So I've always been that way. I've never been able to look over the right. It's like, I have a video at your family party 2 weeks ago. You could look over your right shoulder.
Your right shoulder.
But the brain wants to be comfortable. The brain wants to, it's scared of risk, and it wants to minimize effort.
Well, I don't think anybody wants to admit that they're hurt.
Yeah.
How many people will go home and say there's something wrong in my house? How many people will go home and say my car's not working right?
Yeah.
How many? You sit down at your computer and your computer boots slow.
Yep.
Oh no, that's totally okay.
Yeah.
The blue screen of death shows up. No, just hit the button, restart that. It'll be fine. We maintenance everything that we have.
Yeah.
Everything that we interact with. You maintenance your house, you maintenance your car, you maintenance your computer, you maintenance everything you interact with, you maintenance.
Yep.
Why not you?
Yep.
And so when I talk with people and they look at it, they're like, no. When is it time to go and see my physician? When is it time to go see my doctor? When should I do those things? Well, depends on how long you want to hurt.
Yeah.
When do I go?
How much risk you're willing to take.
Yep.
The best time is the day before a bad injury.
Yes.
Which you can't plan for that, right?
No, because it's great. I absolutely love it when a patient goes through and they're like, oh yeah, I just barely had my physical. I'm doing great. I went to this other doc. I just wanted to check things out. They got some x-rays and an MRI. And nobody ever comes in like that.
Yeah.
They had an MRI because they had an injury. They had x-rays because they had a problem. Yeah. The problem resolves, and then they're in another injury.
Yeah.
And now they're redoing all new x-rays. So you compare an injury to an injury to an injury, you never compare baseline.
Yep.
The easiest one is just those sports physical for kids. Those are awesome because then you can go in and say, this is a healthy kid that was able to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They had no issues. This is a kid post MVC. They were playing football. They were a star quarterback. Now they're cross-eyed. They can't walk straight, and they throw the football off the field. Wait a minute. I've seen that.
Yeah.
And that's like, well, do you hurt? No, but I can't play football anymore. You went and played football after you had a massive concussion? Yeah. Okay, we got to tell your coach, you can't play football for the next couple of weeks because that's a huge risk factor.
Yep.
You go from, if I see an injury, I slow down, but if I don't see that injury and I get a secondary concussion, that's life-threatening.
Yeah.
And people miss that all the time. That goes back to, what do you do after an injury? Well, you get your team. Your parents are part of your team. Your spouse is part of your team. Everybody has parents, so I always throw parents in there. Your spouse is part of your team. Your kids are part of your team. I have parents all the time that come in that's like, my 4-year-old's been telling me I need to get checked. That's awesome. Because the 4-year-old can see that mom's not acting right and she's upset and she goes and hides in her room now and she's emotional and she's not walking straight and the kids see it.
Yeah.
So if your team is there, you get your home team, so your family support. You get your medical team for medical support. You get your attorney. You have a 3-part team. So you have the team that's all on your side. I love insurances. I'll never say really anything bad about them, but they're not part of your team. They're an independent business. And what are businesses there for?
Make money.
To make money.
Yep.
And so at the end of the day, the insurance company, their job is to retain their money.
Yep.
That's not part of your team because that's not their best interest is to make you go home and ice it and never get care.
Yeah.
The team is, where do we get you recover? 3 huge components of recovery. You got to get recovered physically. You got to get recovered mentally. And the third component that I think a lot of people forget is a component of a car accident is you've got to get recovered financially. Your car's broke, so they got to fix that. Did you miss work? You
missed out on family parties.
Missed out on family parties. You weren't able to mow your lawn, so you had to pay somebody to do that.
Yeah.
You had to pay somebody to do dishes. Financially, it is a healing component.
Yeah.
And so it's everybody's job that's in your team to get all 3 of those components. So you get an attorney that knows what they're talking about. They send you to a chiropractor. They send you to a physical therapist. They send you to a medical doctor. They refer you to a medical team that can get you to recover.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important, and people need to find out more about that. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Call the lawyer. Call, the wizard, right?
Absolutely.
So I think if people understand that, they can come to you whether they're feeling okay or they're injured, and you're going to tell them everything looks good, or hey, you're just a little limited here, a little weak in your left shoulder. I recommend you work on that. And then they feel safe knowing there's a doctor who can give them an assessment, who's not going to just say, hey, you got to come in for 30 visits in the next couple months, right? If that's not what they need.
Well, it's the focus on different types of recovery. So you have everybody's heard the word acute or chronic. I guess not everybody, but you have an acute injury. That means that's a short-term injury. It just happened today. You sprained your ankle. You're in a car accident. You fell off a ledge. Those are acute injuries. Those are injuries that the nervous system hasn't reset. It hasn't accommodated. It hasn't facilitated. It is a new injury that's healing.
Yeah.
That is the time to catch it. Then you get to that subacute or subchronic injury where it's a long-term injury. You have to assess. You have to have somebody to be able to assess and say, what injury stage are you at? Right. If you go in the day of your accident, you're very acute. If you go in 6 months after your accident, you're chronic because all that neural reprogramming's occurred. Yeah. So you need somebody that's seen those things, that's going to track that and say, okay, well, 3 years ago you had a rotator cuff tear and they did surgery there. That's not part of this accident. However, did the accident damage the repair? They need to assess it to see if there's been an acute injury, and if there's not, leave it alone.
Yep.
You're a runner. Knee injuries, ankle injuries, all day long. Have you had headaches for the last 5 years while running? No? Okay. Evaluate and say, this is your acute, this is the car accident, we need this to recover. This is your chronic stuff. Do you want that to go away too? Well, this is chronic, this is all on you, or this is your other insurance. But they need to be able to divide it and say, where does care need to change from that acute to that chronic, and what issues are you looking at? I see patients come in where they've been in an accident, they have headaches, they have migraines, they're getting numbness radiating out their arm. We shoot some x-rays, we do the full exam, we do an MRI, and then we have a long conversation about, well, you've had this lump in your lung for the last who knows how long, but it has nothing to do with your car accident. Yeah. Let's get you with an oncologist, or in your thyroid, or in the bones. I see cancer more regularly than I'd want to say.
Yeah.
Just because it's not there. Those red lights aren't on flagging it. Yep. And so you see those chronic long-term issues where you're like, okay, let's get you to the right person. I'm not going to treat cancer. That's not my specialty. That's not what I want to do.
Right.
But I know guys that do.
Yep.
Let's send them to the guy that treats, well, you have an arrhythmia now. How often do you see arrhythmias in accidents? They occur pretty regularly, surprising enough.
Yeah.
That seatbelt's absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
But it causes a contusion on the heart.
Yeah.
And so you'll see cardiac injuries That's not my specialty.
Yep.
Let's send you to a cardiologist.
That's why you have to have a team.
That's why you have to have a team.
Yeah. Get the right specialists. I think that's great. So really quick, one last question before we wrap up for you. We ask everybody at the end of the podcast, what does living in mint condition mean for you?
You know, I met a young, I say young. He was 93. I met a man on my mission. And I always go back to this guy because I'm like, that's what I want to be. So at 93, I sat down, I was talking to him. He rode his bike to work and to school and to church and all that fun stuff. He was a pastor, so he was teaching. He was finishing up his degree as an attorney. I think he said he had like 6 months out at 93.
That's cool.
He figured he'd have his degree as an attorney by 94. He rode his bike everywhere, minimal to no pain whatsoever. That's mint condition. It doesn't matter what age you're at. It doesn't matter how old, how young you are. If you have that ache, if you have that pain, if you have that problem, you're not in mint condition. Stop it.
Yeah.
Find a team. Get better. Do what you should. The reason I bring that guy up is because he looked at all components of life. He looked at mental. He looked at physical. He looked at religion. He looked at finance. He looked at all of the components in his life, and he was on board and functional with all of them. That's mint condition. Let's get, my opinion is let's get everybody to where they don't have pain, to where they can go do what they want in their lives and not be slowed down.
That is an amazing answer. That's very deep. I like that. No, I want to be that at 93. Well, it's been amazing talking with you. I think more people need to be educated by you, your background. People need to be treated by somebody who cares so passionately. What's the best way for them to reach out and contact you guys?
The easiest way would be to probably just give the office a call.
Okay. Do you have that number memorized, or we've got to ask your staff?
I'm going to make my staff answer those questions.
But we can have Brody post that in the description. We're changing numbers right now, so it's like I'm gonna end up not knowing these. We really appreciate you coming on and educating, and hopefully have you doing more and more of this in our community. I know that you've helped out with other organizations too, so thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Anytime.